I want to see my grandkids. And I think a king would like to see his the right to see a grandchildren. You have to figure. That's something I'm proud of course.
You should be. Of course you should.
I'd like to have a few more. Bottom line is I've never heard back from Meghan or Harry in any way, shape, or form. I would love to hear from them. I still haven't seen my grandkids, and I look forward to it, and it's going to have to work out for them and me as well. I know they're very busy, and I know I would love to see them.
Archie and Lilibet.
Yeah.
You'd like to at least...
The opportunity to meet Lilibet, your granddaughter, who he named after the Queen.
As well, because this is a cruel thing to do to our grandparent. Not just...
How many years can a family keep a secret before the silence itself becomes the biggest clue of all? Because right now, a grandfather sitting alone in Mexico is asking questions that nobody seems willing to answer. And with every passing year, every carefully staged photograph, every birthday post, and every ignored plea, the mystery surrounding little Lilibet Diana appears to be growing rather than disappearing. This is no longer just a family feud. This is no longer just a story about estrangement. According to Thomas Markle, something much bigger is hiding beneath the surface, and now his claims have collided with comments from respected royal figures in a way that has sent shockwaves through royal watchers across the world.
He's going to urge that royal couple to allow him to meet his grandchildren for the very first time while he still has the chance.
For years, Thomas Markle has existed almost like a ghost on the edge of Meghan Markle's public life. The father who once proudly spoke about his daughter becoming a member of the royal family now finds himself completely shut out of the lives of his grandchildren. Think about that for a moment. 5 years have passed since Lilibet entered the world, and Thomas claims he still has no meaningful relationship with her. No visits, no family gatherings, no private moments.
As you've already told us, you were sitting in a hotel room watching on
While millions of people around the world have seen carefully selected images released online, the man who is Lilibet's grandfather says he remains completely in the dark. And that is where this story begins to take a dramatic turn. Because Thomas Markle is no longer simply talking about heartbreak, he is talking about questions. Questions, he says, continue to grow every time a new photograph is released. Questions, he says, nobody has properly answered. Questions that have transformed his personal pain into something much larger and far more controversial. The pattern, according to Thomas, is impossible to ignore. Every new image seems to generate another wave of speculation. Every birthday photograph appears carefully controlled. Every public glimpse feels calculated. And every time people think the questions might finally fade away, another image arrives that creates even more discussion than the one before it. What exactly is being hidden? That question has become the center of a growing debate. Thomas has repeatedly pointed toward what he believes are inconsistencies in the public images of Lilibet. He has spoken openly about differences from photo to photo, differences he believes deserve explanations. Critics dismiss those concerns as over-analysis. Supporters argue the questions are legitimate, but regardless of which side someone takes, one fact remains impossible to deny. The conversation refuses to disappear. And then came Lilibet's 5th birthday. A moment that should have been simple suddenly became another source of controversy. The photograph released to mark the occasion followed a familiar pattern. The image showed a carefully composed scene, but once again, observers noticed something unusual. The child's face remained hidden. The framing appeared deliberate. The presentation felt controlled. To many people, it was simply another private family photo. To others, it was another chapter in a story that continues raising eyebrows. Thomas Markle reportedly saw exactly what everyone else saw. Another carefully managed glimpse. Another image revealing just enough to generate attention while revealing very little at all. And suddenly, the question became louder than ever. If privacy is truly the goal, why release the photographs at all? That contradiction sits at the center of the debate, because privacy usually means keeping children completely away from public view. Yet what people see instead are selective images released to millions of followers while family members remain completely excluded. And that is where emotions begin running high. Because this is no longer simply about photographs. This is about access. This is about family. This is about a grandfather who claims strangers on social media receive more visual access to his granddaughter than he does. The emotional impact of that reality has become impossible to separate from the larger controversy. Then something even more significant happened. The discussion expanded beyond Thomas Markle. For years, many critics dismissed his comments as the frustrations of an estranged father. That dismissal became harder when respected royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell began publicly expressing concerns of her own. Suddenly, the discussion was no longer limited to one family member speaking from personal pain. Now, established voices within royal circles were entering the conversation. And when that happens, attention follows. Lady Colin Campbell's remarks immediately intensified debate. Her willingness to publicly challenge accepted narratives shocked many observers. Her comments fueled fresh speculation and forced people to re-examine questions they previously ignored. But the biggest development may have come from another direction entirely. Royal historian Hugo Vickers entered the discussion. And when historians began raising concerns, people listened differently. Unlike sensational headlines or internet rumors, historians build reputations on caution. Their words carry weight because they choose them carefully. So when questions started emerging from respected royal commentators and historians alongside Thomas Markle's ongoing claims, the entire conversation shifted. Suddenly, this was not just one man's story anymore. It became a growing collection of voices, all pointing toward the same uncomfortable reality. There are questions. Questions that continue lingering. Questions that continue growing. Questions that continue generating silence. And perhaps that silence has become the most fascinating part of all, because every controversy eventually reaches a crossroads. Either answers arrive or speculation fills the empty space where answers should have been. Right now, according to Thomas Markle, that empty space continues expanding. Every year adds another layer. Every photograph adds another discussion. Every ignored request adds another piece to a puzzle that many people are now trying desperately to solve. What makes this situation even more dramatic is the clock itself. Thomas Markle is getting older. He has spoken openly about his health struggles. He has spoken openly about his desire to know his grandchildren before it is too late. And that urgency has transformed his recent comments into something much more emotional than simple criticism. He is no longer speaking like a father demanding explanations. He is speaking like a grandfather afraid time may run out before he ever gets the chance to know the children whose lives he can only watch from a distance. And perhaps that is why this story suddenly feels different. Because beneath all the controversy, beneath all the speculation, beneath all the royal drama, there is one question that refuses to go away. For many royal watchers, the most explosive part of this story is not what has been said. It is what has not been said. Because when questions continue circulating for years and nobody directly addresses them, people naturally begin creating their own conclusions. That is exactly what appears to be happening now. Every new development seems to push the story further into the spotlight. Every attempt to move the public conversation elsewhere somehow brings it right back to the same place. And standing at the center of it all remains Thomas Markle, a man who insists he is not searching for headlines, but for answers. What makes the situation even more dramatic is the emotional contrast that surrounds it. On one side, the world sees carefully curated images, polished public appearances, and stories designed to project happiness and stability. On the other side sits an aging grandfather describing years of silence and exclusion. Those two realities are impossible to ignore when placed side by side. One presents a picture of family life, the other presents a picture of separation. And the larger that gap becomes, the harder it is for people to stop asking questions. Many observers believe the controversy has reached a point where simple public relations strategies are no longer enough to quiet the conversation. The reason is simple. This story has evolved beyond a single event. It has become a pattern. Patterns are powerful because people remember them. One unanswered question can be forgotten. 100 unanswered questions spread across 5 years become something entirely different. And perhaps that is why the comments from figures like Lady Colin Campbell and Hugo Vickers generated such intense attention. Whether people agree with them or disagree with them almost becomes secondary. What matters is that respected voices entered a discussion that many assumed would remain on the fringes forever. Once that happened, the story changed. Suddenly, the debate felt larger. Suddenly, people who had never paid attention before started looking more closely. Then there is the issue nobody seems comfortable discussing openly: the future. Because Archie and Lilibet will not remain children forever. One day, they will be old enough enough to search their own family history. One day they will be old enough to read interviews, statements, articles, and public comments. One day they will discover that their grandfather spent years publicly asking to know them. They will see the interviews. They will see the appeals. They will see the controversy. And they may eventually ask their own questions. What happened? Why was there distance? Why was there silence? Those questions belong to the future, but the foundation is already being built today. That reality gives the story an entirely different emotional dimension. It is no longer just about public perception. It is about family history being written in real time. Every interview becomes part of the record. Every statement becomes part of the record. Every unanswered question becomes part of the record. And records have a way of surviving long after controversies fade. Perhaps that is why Thomas Markle continues speaking despite criticism. Perhaps he understands that whether people agree with him or not, his words now exist as part of a public archive that cannot simply disappear. Years from now, the story will still be there. The questions will still be there. The timeline will still be there. Meanwhile, the silence continues, and that silence may be creating more curiosity than any statement ever could, because human nature works that way. When people see a locked door, they wonder what is behind it. When people see a question repeatedly ignored, they wonder why. When explanations never arrive, speculation fills the vacuum. It always does. That is what makes this moment feel so different from previous chapters in the saga. The conversation is no longer shrinking. It is expanding. The number of people paying attention appears to be growing. The questions appear to be multiplying, and the emotional weight behind the story appears heavier than ever before. For Thomas Markle, however, the issue remains painfully simple. Behind every theory, every headline, every debate, and every controversy stands a grandfather who says he wants something ordinary, not royal privileges. Not publicity, not headlines, just a chance to know the grandchildren he believes should be part of his life. Whether those wishes are ever fulfilled remains one of the biggest unanswered questions surrounding this entire story. And that is where things become truly fascinating. Because despite years of controversy, despite endless public discussions, despite countless articles and interviews, the central mystery remains exactly where it started. The questions are still there. The silence is still there. The speculation is still there. But now the attention is bigger than ever. And with every passing birthday, every new photograph, every fresh wave of debate, the pressure surrounding the story appears to grow stronger. What began as a private family dispute has transformed into one of the most talked about mysteries among royal watchers. The grandfather is still asking questions. The public is still asking questions. And until those questions receive answers, one thing seems certain: this story is far from over.